One of the really cool things about running Nomad Capitalist is that I've gotten to hear from hundreds of thousands of people over the years and see what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they like, why they're not doing certain things. And then working with clients personally, I get to see, what are the motivations. And so when it comes to second citizenship, my feeling has always been that you've got to take a holistic approach. On one hand, you've got the strategy, which passport or passports are you going to get? How are you going to get them? Why? How do they matter in your ecosystem? But there's another missing piece that most people don't think about or talk about, and it's causing people, in my opinion, to make a lot of mistakes by ignoring this one piece. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how Nomad Capitalist helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs get their second passport, legally go offshore and go where they're treated best, learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Here's the missing piece when it comes to second citizenships, because everyone talks about strategy. They talk about, how many visa-free countries can you go to with your new passport. They talk about speed, and a lot of this information is actually not even correct. There's a lot of myths out there in the passport world that we've talked about in other videos. But for me, the perspective, the mindset is equally important to this strategy. And so my big piece that I think a lot of people are overlooking is, what is the return on investment? Okay? When people come to me and say, Andrew, I'm paying too much in taxes. I'm paying 40%, 45%, 50% of my income. If you're a 7- or 8-figure earner, that's a lot of money, and you can put that money back to work in your business. And so I always use the example of the guy making $1 million a year. He's paying $400,000 in taxes, and if he comes to me and it costs $50,000 to put together a whole strategy and get that going, and then he no longer has to pay the $400,000. He says, wow, I've got an ROI. I'm going to make my money back in just a couple of months, and then I can enjoy that $400,000 every year for years, right? So your ROI might be 20x, 50x, 100x in some cases. People don't really do that as much when it comes to second citizenships, and I think they do so at their peril. Now, we've talked about two different categories of folks who want to get second citizenship. The first is Plan A. This could be you want to expatriate from your country to free yourself from a tax burden or from burdensome regulations. This is often what we see with U.S. citizens where they want to expatriate because there's too many restrictions on them, including taxes overseas. But it could also be you don't have a great passport right now in terms of visa-free travel. Let's say you're from China or from India or Morocco or any number of places, and let's say you have business that you could be doing in Europe. And so, every day, every month, every year, you can't travel to Europe, or you're delayed in traveling by going and getting visas, sometimes getting rejected. That's costing your business money. Or maybe there are certain investments that you can't make with your current citizenship. U.S. citizens are restricted from certain types of investments, or other citizenships could open up new types of investments that you want to make. And so those are all reasons why I would say that's a Plan A reason for having a second passport. You get the passport and you immediately put it to work for you. Okay, that's the first part. The second part is the Plan B passport. Okay, this is where you're getting it as a safe haven. It's a backup plan if times go bad, or maybe you want to expatriate in the future if business gets bigger. You want to have it ready to go. Okay, you're not going to actively use it, but you see some potential event, whether it's a highly likely future event or whether it's just you're getting an insurance policy, you're getting citizenship insurance, right? And I recommend every high net worth person has a citizenship insurance policy because times are not looking good right now for wealthy people in the West. They are finding more ways to come after you, and so having a set of options is good. Now, let's look at return on investment. I'll give you the biggest story that I see, okay? So you have someone come from the United States. They say, Andrew, I don't really care about being a United States citizen. In fact, if I were to expatriate, I figure I could save an extra couple $100,000 a year in tax. Now, Americans can go offshore and they can dramatically reduce the amount of tax they pay. You don't have to give up your citizenship to reduce the amount of tax you pay. But for some people, you can get even more benefit by expatriating, and so sometimes people they want to do that, okay? But I've seen so many people where, hey, I could save $200,000 a year and I plan to, be offshore for a long, long time. So over the years, it'll add up to millions of dollars. And I'll say, hey, that's great. Here's a citizenship by investment program in the Caribbean. We can probably do the cheapest one. It's $100,000 plus some fees. You'll have an ROI in less than a year. And since you said you're going to be earning money for another 10 or 20 years, you're going to make this a 25x return. And what will happen is, what I've really dialed into, because I think self-awareness and I think understanding mindset is important. I spent a lot of my time studying this stuff. What we'll get is, I don't really feel comfortable. Is there somewhere I can buy some property or something? And the answer is yes, there are passports where you can buy some property. They may not be as fast as the citizenship by investment. And so every day that you're not doing one of the options, every day you don't have your second passport, time is ticking, money's being lost in this case. And I've seen folks literally say, well, let's do the one that takes an extra year. I'll lose an extra $200,000, basically because I don't want to be a sucker paying $100,000. I know what it's like. I know why I went into business. I went into business when it wasn't cool. Back, some of you young entrepreneurs, it's like hashtag entrepreneur, where, we're all, it's all pretty sexy. I wanted to be in business when no one wanted. I mean, this was like you were a loser. You wanted to be in business. And so I understand some of the desire to be in control, and now that you're successful, you don't want to be seen as a stupid person, right? You want to be like, I'm a smart person. I'm the smartest person. I've got the best marks. I went to the best schools. But for me, it's all about ROI. If I can pay $100,000 and save $200,000 in the course of a year, that's a great ROI. And then when I expand that over the course of what's the reasonable course of the life of this deal, and I say, oh, well, now we get into that 25x number. Who cares if you're wasting the money by donating it, right? You don't, because if you went and made a real estate investment somewhere else, that real estate investment could go down in value, something could happen, there's still government fees, etc. And if you're waiting, in my example, an extra year to get that passport, you just lost $200,000 to theoretically not lose $100,000, but you also might lose part of the other money you put somewhere else. And so the bottom line is, you can't look at it from the perspective of ego or from emotion, right? I think that it's all about ROI. If you're traveling for business, whether you have a lower quality passport and you want to go to Europe, the US, or whatever for business, or let's say you're a Westerner with a pretty good passport, but you need to go to Russia or China or somewhere else that you can't go to, how much is that costing you by not going there? Sit down. I sit down every once in a while and I'll do like a budget for, what does it cost me to live, or what would it cost me to live in a certain way, just kind of doing financial projections. And it's tempting to kind of do like, back of the envelope numbers, but sit down and really think, if you can't travel to Russia for business, and every time you've got to get a visa and it's a pain and they hassle you or this or that, how much are you losing? Now, maybe the number is not a lot. Maybe you can do, Zoom conferences and you don't even need to go to Russia, and so you just abandon that reason for having a second passport. But if you're losing $500,000 a year by not being able to go to Russia, then again, going to one of these Caribbean countries that has visa-free travel to Russia, paying the $100,000, or maybe we look through your ancestry, maybe there's some ancestral passport you can get that gives you visa-free travel, or whatever the strategy is, what is the ROI? And so I think that's very important to figure out. Now, let's just say that you're the high net worth, ultra high net worth individual. You want your citizenship insurance policy. It's a plan B. Now again, some people will get a second passport now, the American for an example, who says, I don't want to expatriate now, but if they become too difficult in my business overseas, then I want to have it ready to go so I can just flip the switch at any time. That's one option. But for folks who just want the insurance policy of having a second citizenship, you have to look at it almost like an actuary. This is how I like to make a lot of decisions in my life, is I act like I'm an insurance company. What is the chance that a global pandemic is going to come and lock everyone down in their homes, and they're not going to let you go, and they're going to declare martial law, and they're going to freeze down your bank accounts, and you're not going to have access, and you won't be able to go and escape to your other home? I don't know, 2%, right? Looks a lot higher right now, but let's say it's 2%. Okay. What would be the cost if that happened to you? Well, for certain people, it could be millions of dollars, right? So, if the cost to you is $10 million and that's a 2% chance, then $200,000 is your number. And if you can spend less than $200,000 getting a passport, that's cool. Now, I understand we've worked with some folks who are high net worth individuals where there's just a cool factor, right? And so you might pay over that just because you want to get the coolest or the best or the shiniest passport, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are probably a lot of events out there where the chances are higher than 2%, right? It could mean, restrictions of freedom of movement. It could mean that the wrong person gets elected and they jack your tax rates up and they impose a wealth tax and they try and redistribute income. It could mean a lot of things, right? And so, how do you prepare for that? I very rarely have people making huge investments to get citizenships. We go through descent, we do fast-track naturalization, we do citizenship by investment. The numbers very rarely get into the 7 figures. And so I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of investors and a lot of successful people, somewhere in the 5 or 6 figures is a very reasonable number to spend that you can get an ROI on, whether it's tax savings, whether it's potential future tax savings, whether it's avoiding higher taxes in the future, whether it's avoiding having some of your stuff taken or your freedoms limited, or just having a safe place to go. That's the perspective that I look at it from. And so when people say, Andrew, why do you talk to the 6 and the 7 and the 8 figure entrepreneurs? It's because it's hard for me to really tell someone, as a financially minded guy, as someone who's not a doomsdayer, but does understand that bad things happen at times, it's hard for me to tell someone who makes $28,000 a year to go take a bunch of money and put it into a second passport. I'm not going to be angry at you if you do. Obviously, I also run a business, and it's I work with the people who are most able to hire us and to pay our fees. But for me, I wouldn't want someone to take their entire life savings when they're working at a fast food restaurant and put that into getting some other passport, just in the odd chance that something will happen, when really a lot of the stuff we talk about is probably going to be more likely to affect wealthy people. Certainly freedom of movement and stuff like that could be an issue. But if you're working at a fast food restaurant, being able to go to 182 countries probably isn't your top priority, or at least shouldn't be. Building your business should be your priority. Getting up to that 7 and 8 figure level should be your priority. So I'm not angry at you if you want to go out and get a second residence or get a second passport. I think anyone should do it, and they're cool with it. I often, because I look at this as a financial, actuarial equation, it makes the most sense for people who are successful, which is why I say if you are a high net worth individual, I almost think it's irresponsible at a certain point to not have a citizenship insurance policy. That is the difference. It's about return on investment, whether it's immediate, whether it's in the future, or whether it's perceived. Focus on the ROI. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.